Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast. Welcome to SoMe Docs. I'm the founder of this venture, Dr. Donna Coriel, a curious internist turned digital entrepreneur. I run this beautiful community and encourage you all to subscribe, engage, and join us at doctorsonsocialmedia.com. The following is a conversation we had with a professional in healthcare, now available to both watch in video or listen to through audio podcast. We hope it entertains, inspires, and ignites conversation. Don't forget to check out our other unique resources on our website, and of course, share this with your friends. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our show. I am very excited to have sitting across from me virtually Dr. Diana Londono, who is a urologist out west. Diana, I'm going to have you actually tell us where you are specifically, but I can tell the audience that I have known Diana for quite some time now. She has written several articles for SoMe Docs. They all focus on burnout and on burnout solutions. So Dr. Londono, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really just appreciate all that you're doing and your platform and just really giving us a place, to do so many things and not just writing like the articles that are shared, but just really connecting and amplifying, with other physicians and with other people in, medicine. So I'm really grateful for all you do and all you contribute to all of us.
Thank you so much. Can you tell the audience about your practice first as a medical physician? Are you practicing full time, and what does that look like?
Yes, thank you. So I'm in Los Angeles. I'm a full-time urologist, and I also have two kids, 5 and 8-year-old. And I also, on the side, and really, really shifted my focus in the last couple of years to talk about, wellness for physicians, because we know, and I know it's sort of over talked about, and we kind of get tired of it, but burnout is real. And the thing is, like, it affects so many of us. And, when we're in burnout, it affects the care we give, and we're all patients. So when we're going to the ER and 65% of the physicians there are burned out, it matters because there may be mistakes. You may have less compassion. You may not just get the care that you expect because people are not going to be joyful and happy. They're going to be, moody and angry and irritable. So that's what happens when you're in burnout. And again, we're all patients. Our kids get sick, our family gets sick, there's cancer diagnosis. And so you want that empathy. You want people to be present and not rushed and not in a bad mood. And again, it's almost impossible not to be when you're in survival, when you're in burnout. So through my own journey of burnout, which we all probably have a similar story because they're so prevalent, I really focus on what can I do to give back? What can I do to heal myself, to really go through that process of getting to a better place, and really through diving into that and learning about, what is it, what's happening, really trying to share what I've learned from like reading and talking to other people, and really helping other people. And so, for me, healing was a important part, and writing was part of it. So I mean, again, I've written for SoMe Docs and other platforms, but it's really just been a way to heal, to connect, and to get to know the people, and realize like we're all in a very similar experience.
Yeah, that's really well said. Do you think, just thinking about all the things that you said, and you were describing yourself as a mother, and in my head, I'm thinking, absolutely, juggling motherhood and career and all of those things, it really takes a toll on us. Do you think that in general, women tend to sometimes have it worse than men because of all those traditional, family values and the traditional roles that we have taken on? Or do you think that we really do suffer from burnout equally?
I mean, the numbers say that women suffer from it more, definitely more, in all categories, whether it's depression and suicide. So it's real. The numbers show the data. I mean, there's no drama in the numbers. However, I mean, I think a lot of what happens is socialization. What happens when we grow up? How are we told to behave? Are we the ones that are told to be nice, to smile, to be kind? And I'm not saying boys don't get told that, but girls especially are told to be nice, play nice, kind of get in the box, don't get too loud, don't be too expressive, and then sort of like shuts down our voice. It shuts down like, who we are. And also we learn to people please and we learn to like not say no anymore. When you see little kids, they can say no all the time very easily. They say no all the time, but we sort of shut it out of them and more for girls. So then that just translates as you go on and on. And especially in medicine, we all want that praise, people to like us, people to be happy with our care. So we kind of get a little bit of dopamine from helping and, giving everything for everybody. So we just don't learn those skills of boundaries, of learning to say no, of being okay, like if people maybe don't like us by saying no. And many people are not going to like that. But we have to be comfortable in our own skin. And I think some of the subconscious messages we get is that we shouldn't be comfortable because you shouldn't be like this. You have to kind of fit in this box. So I think for those reasons, we do tend to suffer from it more. Many men don't have any problem saying no. They're like, okay, whatever. But women internalize it about like, I'm not liked. There's something wrong with me, and so then it starts leading us to that path of burnout. So I think it's definitely multifactorial, but there's some socialization that comes into play.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And also the use of that term no, which is so interesting because I've read so much about the use of that word no and the fact that we're so hesitant to use it. Do you think that as a profession, physicians have a harder time saying no?
Absolutely. I think it's really challenging for people to say no or no, thank you, really, but it's really challenging. They they were just always told to say yes to everything. Like we had no sort of like right to say, no, I don't want to stay up this late. No, I don't want to do this. Because if we said no, we were the weak, we're not cut out to do this, like maybe you should do something else. Everybody else is doing it. So it's sort of like this mentality of like everybody else is doing it. So what's wrong with you by saying no? And so we do have a harder time, but it's so important to like learn that because when you say yes to everything, which is what ends up happening, you say yes to this committee, yes to doing this, yes to this unpaid work all the time, and especially more women, then by default, you're gonna get overwhelmed, overworked. And then there's like no time for you to do anything for your care, for you to like exercise, have time to make healthy meals, eat with your family, put your kids to bed. Like it's just not going to happen. But when you learn to say no, like, no, I don't want to be double booked. No, I don't want to start at this time, you know, putting those boundaries, then you have time to do all this other stuff that is so important. Again, maybe time with your kids, maybe time to drop them off at school, pick them up, whatever it is. But when we always say yes and we're always in a state of fear, then we never change like our reality. So when we let go of that fear and then start looking at everything from a like lens of love, and then maybe love for your kids or love for what's important to you or love for yourself, then the outcome will be very different.
When you talk about love, I can't help but think back to the reels that you had made in the past, and you may still make them. I just haven't seen them pop up on my feed, but those reels where you're dancing. And is that something that you continue to do now? Because again, the image, and I'm going to show it in for the people that are watching the recording on visual, I'm going to show like the positivity and the love that you exude when you create a reel. Can you tell us about those that you produce?
Yeah, I think it's also part of, sort of my healing journey and just being authentic to me. I mean, I've always loved to like dance and move, and no matter where I was, in growing up, like whether it was high school or college or med school, I mean, I was always the first one or the last one dancing. And it's just part of something that is just something that makes me feel happy, alive. And it's definitely something that can help anyone when they're feeling in a funk, when they're not feeling well, when they're feeling apathetic, depressed, angry. I mean, movement is so important. So whether you call it dancing or we call it running or you call it, tennis, that movement is crucial. And it really can just, elevate your kind of frequency of being in a low state of like apathy or anger to something more like love that is much higher, joyful vibration of how you feel inside. So movement is really important. I think, any way you want to express it is okay, and you don't have to ever post it, but it's just important to do it because you just kind of move all that stagnant energy that is weighing you down and sort of like going like this on a sheet or a blanket, just moving it, it just gets all that dust off. So the same thing will happen with you. You get all this energy just weighing you down, and you're just going to feel better. So I encourage, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling kind of low, like put a song that you like, get in the kitchen or wherever you are, and just, dance and move, and you're just going to feel so much better. So put a music that you like, that lights you up, that excites you, when you're not feeling well. And it doesn't have to, again, get complicated, but these are simple things we could all do, and they're free, they're easy.
Yeah, I agree. It actually reminds me of a lecture or several lectures that we had this weekend. We had a skin like mind body conference by all these dermatologists in this. It's not a new field, but it's just a field that's gotten a lot more traction called psychodermatology. And there was a lot of focus on laughter. There was also movement and Reiki and things like that, but there was laughter. And there's a few of the presenters and the speakers in particular, these doctors that focus on laughing as a treatment. It reminds me of that because similarly, he like taught us to one of the guys, Dr. Daveluy. It's time to take a break. It's also the perfect place to tell you about the virtual conference we ran this weekend with lecture footage that can now be accessed at the click of your mouse. It was on the topic of psychodermatology called Holistic Skin Care: Solutions for Emotional Drivers of Skin Disease. Here's a preview of just one of the lectures we featured, the aforementioned Dr. Daveluy.
Hello! I'm Steve Daveluy, board certified dermatologist and laughter yogi at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. Did you know your brain can't tell the difference between fake laughter and real laughter? I hope you'll join me when I talk about the health benefits of laughter and how you can utilize laughter yoga to reap those benefits in your life. So please, come laugh with me. It's good for your health.
You can access Dr. Daveluy's lecture and all of the other recordings that were featured in this virtual conference on doctorsonsocialmedia.com/conferences. Now back to the show. Taught us how to just randomly laugh, even if nothing's making you laugh. And if you sort of start out your day laughing, or you start out any like interaction that's going to be negative, if you started out laughing, it almost like forces you to be in a better mood.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and it's all energy at the end of the day. And I mean, I know you had Reiki, which is an energy healing, but there's other things like pranic healing. And one of the exercises you do before your meditations is movement of the body, but also like this like laughter thing that is really silly, but just that getting that energy and just getting that different sort of, yeah, energy in your body when you're laughing, it changes the spectrum of the day. How is going to be that lens? How are you seeing the day? Like, are you taking everything so personally and you're kind of angry, or can you laugh about it? I mean, everything that happens, you know there's always, a silver lining, one, and two, something that at the end of the day, maybe is kind of laugh about it, can just be helpful to lighten the load of what you're dealing with. And I'm not saying don't be serious about things. Of course, there's many things that are serious, but sometimes just a little laughter, can just be very helpful in how you feel.
Wonderful. I'm actually going to be sharing now the screen of an article that you wrote for SoMeDocs because I have a few questions lined up from it and based on it. I don't want to forget to also speak to you about what you have created. We spoke about it off camera just a little bit. Apparently, it's a nonprofit. I know about it because you had told me about it in the past, and I think it's so amazing. So again, we're going to talk about the physician coach support. And in particular, what I really love about it is that it's free. To me, that's something that actually makes it stand out from a lot of what we hear where it comes to coaching services, especially in the healthcare professional field. So definitely talk about that. But let me share the screen before that, and we can quickly look through one of the articles that we're going to highlight in this episode, and it's called Burnout is a Spiritual Crisis. I'm going to actually read one of your quotes and ask you a question about it. So here's a quote from Dr. Diana Londono. After almost 15 years as a urologist, I wondered, what else can I do? What am I supposed to be doing because I need to leave medicine? I need a plan B. So that's a really powerful statement. My question to you is, What is your plan B?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, that was definitely a time when I was in the full, throes of burnout. And for me, burnout really manifested very physically because it will at some point, chronic stress leads to burnout. And then chronic stress changes every single cell of your body. So you're going to notice your hair falls out, your skin looks terrible, just like you talked about in your conference recently, the impact of, the changes of stress and what it does to our skin. But you're going to have insomnia, you're going to grind your teeth, get reflux, indigestion, pelvic pain. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And to me, I had all of that, chest pain, everything, and even joint pain. Like I had the rheumatoid factor elevated, like autoimmune disease manifesting just from chronic stress. And when you change all of that, and when you change your perception and when you put in your attention to and how you start your day and really find a purpose, which again is basically sort of like a spiritual question. What is your purpose in life? How can I give back? How can it be of service? Whether it's yes within medicine or outside of it, you really start changing your physiology and it starts changing how you feel, how you act, like the energy you give out. So it's really, really important to kind of sit down and think about these questions. What is your purpose in life? How can you give back? How can you be of service? And who truly am I? And I think these questions, were a spiritual crisis. I never thought about them, but the more I sort of sat there, thought about it, that's really how I kind of came up with physiciancoachsupport.com, which is free and confidential platform. Now, it's not like about free coaching, it's about support for physicians using coaching skills, which is different than a therapist, it's different than your best friend, but it's just about, helping one another and talking to somebody, because we know connection is essential to feel better. Loneliness is an epidemic, many people have talked about it. Merckme wrote a book about it. I mean, this is real loneliness. Even if we're surrounded by people or patients or colleagues, many of us feel lonely. Many of us feel we can't talk to anybody about a lot of things. I'm not even talking about stress, but just daily things. We're so isolated still, even after COVID, that, when you can talk to somebody, there's no judgment, it's confidential, you just feel better. You get out of like these stories in your head of feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you don't know what the next step is, and you can get to a better place, just with, an hour of talking to somebody. I mean, you can't underestimate the power of like a connection and connection to a colleague that many of us, have been there in burnout. So that's really how this all started, talking about, what is a crisis, what is my purpose, and using my skills that I had at the time to give back to others.
Wonderful. What a wonderful resource. And again, we'll talk about it quickly later as well. There was another question that I had. I'm just kind of scrolling down to see. Here it is. So this is where we react and interact. And I'll just read a little excerpt of it. We perceive the world as one in which we are not the creators of it, but we are just reacting to outside circumstances. And in doing so, we will lash out with anger, contempt, and humiliation towards others. You hurt me, and I will hurt you back. So my question is, how does that translate to our patients? Do you see that burnout is directly or indirectly being taken out on patients?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you're in burnout, it affects everybody. It affects you physically, it affects your family, like your immediate family. It affects anybody you interact with, whether you're at the grocery store, and definitely people you see every day, which is the patients. Again, when you're in burnout, you're going to be angry, you're going to be reactive, you're going to have less patience, less compassion. That's just because your nervous system is in survival. So when you're in survival, that's not the time to be joyful and calm and curious. I mean, you lose that curiosity when you're in survival mode. And so, of course, they're going to get that, end of the stick where you don't feel that love, that joy, that sense of calm presence at all. You're going to be rash, reactive, annoyed. So again, it's so important. Like, we want to care for patients, but we have to realize when you're in burnout, you're not caring for anybody. And it's going to affect definitely your immediate family and yourself. And you're going to feel and see the manifestations of many, medical problems, pains. I hear so many of my colleagues, like, I have this neck pain and this shoulder pain, and they go get all these injections and things. And I'm bloated and I feel uncomfortable. And that's all from the stress. So we have to realize how stress really affects our body and how it's really important to sort of change, our perception, change what we're putting our attention to, making that time for taking care of ourselves, to do things we enjoy, our hobbies, being with our family, eating, like I said, sleeping well. All those things are really important to feel better.
Now, there's a lot on our site and in our magazine that's about healthcare and about how healthcare is broken. Even personally speaking, I've authored many articles which speak to the different issues in healthcare that are actually contributing to our burnout. Do you think that there are clear-cut ways to find, solutions to burnout for those that are still practicing within? And are you hoping to contribute to that?
Yeah, I think it's multifactorial, and you have to think about like the cannery, and the coal mine. So it's not just what's wrong with the cannery, why can't they, deal with it? I mean, we have to look at the environment. We are all product of our environment. So whether you want to live longer and what's causing to live longer or live less time, it's a lot to do with the environment. So the same thing is in medicine. The environment, what's happening in the culture, what's happening with the pressures, what's happening with all the middlemen that are in between us taking care of the patient. So we can't just not think about that. We cannot think about the culture. That's really, really important. So, but it's also really important that we stand up for ourselves. We come together. We learn to say no. Learn to say, like, this is not acceptable, because we can sort of blame everybody else for what's happening. But at some point, we also have to take some ownership and realize we're not just victims. We have so much power, so much power. And we don't use that power. We don't use that voice. And we can all come together. There's so many people in so many areas, whether it's advocacy, whether it's just peer support, whether it's people growing businesses to help, any aspect of medicine in many ways. They're all trying to do things. So there's so many innovative people doing things, but we have to support each other. We have to amplify each other. We have to work together. And again, we have to realize we do have power. We do have strength. We have a voice. So, I mean, that's why I also love Semi Docs, because it's really doing that mission of amplifying people, connecting people, and having conversations that, maybe wouldn't happen otherwise. So, we have to look at everything, both environment, okay, and there's a lot of work to be done there, but also ourselves, and also learning there's many things we can control, but then we don't have to just be victims of it. We can then decide how we're going to react to the things we can't control, because most of it we cannot, but there's many things that are under control. And many times that could be our attitude about the situation. Many times would be putting our time, our resource, our efforts into something that is going to, again, kind of go back to that purpose, to fuel you, to make you joyful. You may not be able to control everything, but how are you controlling your daily environment, your daily attitude to be joyful in whatever state you're in? I mean, you can be in the worst situation, and you can look at Viktor Frankl or any person that's gone through terrible, terrible, things in their life, but how they viewed, everything that was going around them. And we have that power of how we're going to react to everything.
I really like that. I really like the perspective of the fact that you're in control. So I want to really sort of stress that here to the listener, about yes, we can complain. And of course, I'm all for that in terms of raising awareness. I think that that's key in change. But at the end of the day, what are we going to do about this to take ourselves out of that victimization role? So that's fabulous. I'm actually going to stop sharing because for the last part, I do want to talk about some of what you've built. I think it's very relevant to this actually, which is why it's important for me to build structure during these episodes. So before I do that, I just want to quickly say these words because they're so wonderful that you've written here. Stress and creativity cannot coexist. How interesting is that? Can you briefly just tell me what you intended to mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really looking at our nervous system. I mean, it's looking at, are we in the sympathetic or parasympathetic? So when you're in sympathetic fight or flight, cortisol, all the stress hormones are being released. You're in a stress state. There's no way you can be creative when you're in a stress state. You're not in any flow state. What is a flow or a creative state? When you're in that other parasympathetic, the rest and digest. I mean, that's why many people get great ideas when they're in the hot shower, they're on vacation, they're relaxed, they're painting, they get all these ideas and creativity when they're in a parasympathetic nervous system sort of place. So when you're stressed, you cannot be creative. So, and being creative stops the stress cycle. So it's sort of like a catch 2020, but when you make that time to do these activities that fuel your parasympathetic nervous system to start acting, creativity will come. And also when you're creative, you're just more joyful, you feel more expansive. It's just a different way of feeling. So, you can't have one or the other. So, make that time, do activities, again, that are going to put you in a parasympathetic nervous system and get you out of the fight or flight.
I love that because I personally get a ton of ideas in the shower. So
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there. All right. I want to spend a few minutes talking about this because it's obviously important to you. And it's also quite interesting, even to me as an entrepreneur, because I personally don't believe entrepreneurship is a bad thing. But let's talk about that because interestingly, you pointed out before we recorded that what you've built is actually a nonprofit. So tell me a little bit about what physician coach support means.
So it's actually technically an LLC. It's not a nonprofit, just because it's so much, at this point in time, work, and I have a full-time job, full-time, family, to do a nonprofit because it takes a lot of different structure and different work to do that. Right now, it technically is an LLC, but we don't sell anything. We're not there to sell. We're just really there to help our colleagues. And how do we help colleagues? You come to the site, you look at your own time zone, and you make an appointment via Zoom with a colleague, and you can talk about anything that's overwhelming you, you're concerned about, you're worried about. And what we do is, as coaches, we just use those skills, which are a little bit different, again, than a therapist or a friend, to help you get you out of that overwhelm and get you to a place where there's a little more clarity. There's a little more like structure, next steps. What can you do? How can you look at things a little bit differently? So much of what we suffer with is the way that we perceive the reality may be. The reality is sort of like how you perceive it and how I perceive it. It could be the same situation. So sometimes shifting how we see things or the stories we tell ourselves can make a huge difference of how we feel and then how we're going to take action. So sometimes we may just be scared and we don't see a different way. But when we're in fear, nothing good ever comes out of it. We just get stuck, we get overwhelmed. Again, the stress cycle starts. When we start shifting and looking things a little bit different and getting a little more curious, coming from a lens of love, then we can start really changing like our reality, our whole body inside of us, our nervous system. And then again, we get to a better place. So we're really there for just support, but using these skills, again, they're a little bit different. We're not giving like free coaching. It's just, how can we help you? How can we be there for you? How can we just talk about what's going on with you, in a confidential manner that we don't report to anybody, but we're there just to support you. There's many other, platforms that are doing similar work that are run by physicians, Physician Anonymous, Physician Support Line. These are just different places people can go and get support. And I've used all of them. I know the founders of both, and they're fantastic people that really have a mission, they have a purpose. And again, that purpose is what really helps you in a way to also get out of burnout. And it helps people when they retire to not just die after, a year of retirement, because they have a purpose. When you have a purpose, you are able to live longer, live happier, laugh a lot more, and just feel better overall.
That's wonderful. And actually, Physicians Anonymous joined us in one of our SoMe conversations. So I'll add that link to the show notes so that everybody can sort of link to that as well. What I really like here is that there's different options for physicians, and yet you're all sort of connected in some way or another and supportive of one another. So that's really, really nice. So quick question about it is, how are you able to keep it going and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's free for physicians?
Yeah, I mean, this has been self-funded, and I have, not yet got any outside support yet, but the goal is to really get support, get, organizations to sponsor a monthly podcast that we do. Every month we have a monthly podcast where we bring a physician and talk about different tools, tricks, ideas, concepts. We just had somebody talk about depression and looking at depression in a different lens, talking about like near-death experiences, meditation, movement, writing, so many different things that can help us or look at things differently. So we are looking for people to sponsor us. I also, I speak at conferences, do workshops, and all that revenue from that really goes back into code support to continue it, because it's free, but there's a lot of cost to it. Just because it's free, there's so much cost behind the scenes. But we do have amazing volunteers. They're the ones that really are all there to help you. And again, we want to be of service, but we want to also just get support. So if you are, in a business or a solopreneur that wants to maybe get more visibility through a podcast or on a website, reach out to me, because again, we want to work together. We want to partner. We want to help you. I'm all about really, just like you talk about, there's other organizations, but I don't have this competitive thing. I mean, we should all help each other. We all rise together and we all help each other. So I don't have this scarcity mindset about things. And just like people have helped me, I want to help others as well in whatever business they're doing and whatever venture they're doing, so they can get more visibility, with our followers, with our website. So that's how really we want to grow it. And if you are interested, please reach out. But again, the whole purpose is that we can all be in a better place, because many of us have been through it. And, we're all patients, and it really, really matters the care that we're going to get as well.
Wonderful. Now, are there any parting words? I mean, you shared some parting words and an ask. Is there anything else that you can think of before we wrap it up, as far as how any of those listening can either help you or take part in what you've built?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, please, realize getting help is okay. It doesn't have to be a coach support. It could be just with your own therapist, with a friend, just reach out. Like, you will never, ever regret getting help. Never, and then personally myself, I have gotten help before, or I had to ask when I felt uncomfortable asking, just like I ask now, it's uncomfortable, but you're going to be okay if you ask. The worst that can happen is somebody says no, but that's okay. But if you're struggling, if you feel there's no way out, if you're feeling kind of dark, overwhelmed, it's so important that you just ask for help. Take that one step for you to get help, and realize, like, you as a physician can do so many things. Like, there's many plan Bs, plan C, plan D. You can take time off, come back, or leave altogether. It's okay as long as you take care of yourself. And you're going to figure this out. When I had my first job after residency, I quit and I had no plan, quote unquote, but you figure this stuff out. Like, I did my own solo practice, within a month. I just figured it out. You're smart. You'll figure out the next step. And, it's not worth it to live in misery, in pain, or, like have our colleagues, who die by suicide. So please take care of yourself and have courage. You matter, you're important, and you really are worth it to take care of yourself. So again, thank you, Dana, for this platform, for everything you do, for elevating all of us, connecting us. And I'm just really grateful to you and all you do.
Wonderful. I wish you success in what you've built. So exciting to see, the different things that doctors do and all the ways that we can think about to really reach our colleagues. So everybody, Dr. Diana Londono, and I will leave her profile link in the show notes so that you can follow her. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Dana.